You know, you mentioned that you had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
How did you die?
Being a dumb teenage boy, I had injured my left thigh, and it got infected. And I had my own little apartment in high school because we were so poor. I ended up getting my own place, and I bicycled from Charlotte all the way to the North Carolina coast, 200 miles with this injury. It got infected, spread all through my quadricep muscle on my left leg. And oh man, I was sick. And I said, well, I better get home. So I bicycled 200 miles back. And we were so poor, we didn't have health insurance. I didn't have to see a doctor. And so I just laid there. I got sicker and sicker and sicker. I went into renal failure, kidney failure, and liver failure from the infection, sepsis, and died. I was by myself. But I had this amazing experience. And I didn't have any religious part of it. It was more unbounded consciousness and experiencing the cosmos and sort of the state of oneness. Beautiful. But it was so profound. And actually, after I came back into my body, I was spontaneously healed. I never saw a doctor. My fever broke. I became completely normal the next day, and it was one of these kind of miraculous things. But so I guess it wasn't my time to leave back then. Now, that was in the spring of '73. You know, it was 50 years ago. But you know, so that sort of informed a lot of my perspective on life, and but also it helped me with some other things, and that is, if you face that, you're not going to be afraid of death. And so I have sort of I call it the spirit warrior mindset, where I'm just not afraid of if I get threatened, or I've been threatened plenty with what I'm doing, because I'm sort of the lead guy trying to move a lot of really big top secret programs to the public fore in a way that's helpful. And there have been a lot of threats and, you know, things happen, but it doesn't stop me at all. You know, I mean, it can be concerning, but it's not stopped me. So I think that experience was very good preparatory. If there was some larger plan from some higher power, it was probably gave me all these experiences so that I could, like, you know, stay the course on what my task is here.
Back in those days, near-death experiences, they weren't taken as serious as they're taken today. Many people who had those experiences, they were doubted. They weren't believed. People dismissed their claims of there being something more. But we now know that consciousness, if you will, our conscious doesn't end when our heart stops beating. It doesn't end when our physical life as we know it no longer exists. Anybody who I've ever read about or seen documentaries on, they've never come back the same. They've always come back with a different level of awakening. Mm-hmm. Would you say, and interestingly enough, most come back with a more, and I don't know if I want to call it religious, but there's a deeper level of belief, if you will.
Well, I think it's a deeper level of knowing. So I call it spiritual and conscious, as opposed to religion, which connotes organized religion, which are structures of organization. So I think I make a distinction between sort of a universal spirituality and a discipline, which is fine, whether it's, you know, this religion or that religion. But I think at the root of all of that, the foundation of it, is a spiritual consciousness and knowledge. And it has less to do for me with belief than knowledge, because belief is sort of knowledge of things not yet known. But if you know it and have experienced it, then it's known. And that's why I always tell people, no, I don't believe in UFOs. You believe in the tooth fairy. But if you've seen one, and if you've dealt with classified projects, and you've dealt with the actual phenomenon directly, where you have dispositive knowledge, proof, then it's not belief. It's like, well, do I believe in this camera I'm looking at? Well, I mean, it's not correct use of the word belief. So I think in this case, as a scientist, I make a distinction between the belief in something, or what your paradigm and belief is, and what the facts are. And the facts on this are, quite frankly, overwhelming to anyone who takes a even cursory look at it.
I don't know if I got my timeline right. Did I hear you say 6 months after your near-death experience, you saw the UFO?
Yeah, well, I had one that I saw when I was 8. And then when I was 17 and had the near-death, 6 months after that, I'd turned 18. I was away at college, and I was up in the mountains of North Carolina, and had a major, very close encounter, which was the foundation for our starting close encounters of the 5th kind, which is when humans initiate contact with these civilizations.
Okay, stop there for 1 second. Is this random? Now that you're in your 60s, do you look back over the course of your life and say, I was chosen? Because most people can go their entire life and have no interaction with alien species. They're never going to see a UFO. Right. But within a 10-year span, you saw your first UFO, you had a near-death experience, and you saw your second. Do you believe this was always going to be my destiny?
Yeah, probably. Although, you know what, I think it's a misinterpretation of an old phrase. It's called, many are called but few are chosen. I don't think that's true. I think many are called but few choose to answer the call. All right. In other words, you have to see that you have to step up to that. You have free will. You have to step up to a responsibility. It's like I was on a flight and some dude in row 9 died, had a heart attack. Now all our lawyers say, don't step into that because you'll get sued. We used to have Good Samaritan laws. Now doctors get sued if they help anyone doing anything on the street. And I said, well, I'm not going to let that man die. So I went back and ran a code blue and defibrillated him, got his heart started back. Now, I chose to do that. A lot of doctors would have stayed in their seat, not gotten up because of the risk of being sued, because there's an ambulance chasing the lawyer on every street corner. But, excuse me for saying so. But, I said no. So I think there are many people have an opportunity and they take a pass. So I think where the rubber meets the road on so much of life is there's a need. Do you choose to answer it and do that or not? Now, it could be that there could be some destiny involved or some pathway, or the Buddhists would call it dharma, your life's work and path. I believe that, but you could also choose not to do it. You could choose to walk the other way. So this is the mystery of the choices we make. But, if we're made in the image of a greater being, that one of those is having the creative ability to choose or not choose and use our free will. I think we're at a time now where a lot of people need to make the right choices very quickly, given what's happening on this planet. And so that's where it gets into, to me, that's the ultimate, not religious, but moral or spiritual question, is what choices we make.
Ya vámonos.